Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten seen a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongoose.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
All right. We got Wes, we got Palmer, we got Jake Rowe. Jake Roos will join us momentarily. Jake Rowe, welcome back. Hope everything's well in the intestinal department.
Oh, yeah, big time. Best I've ever been, I think.
Sometimes you just got to hit reset. What'd y'all think about Jalen Carter's pro day? Was it as bad as Twitter is telling me that it was? I wasn't there on the ground. I did watch it on the SEC network and saw the footage that Palmer sent in. But what did your eyes tell you?
It was tough to watch him for us because that's when the interviews really started kicking off. But I will say this: he was there. He was there for a good time, not a long time. And what I mean by that is, the conditioning played a role in it. I didn't really notice it at the time, but, you kind of put two and two together. He didn't work out for a ton. He looked good. I thought he looked great in the very short time that I watched him. He looked great going through bags. He's quick, man. He's twitchy. He's a good-looking player. But for whatever reason, he came in not as great shape and is carrying some extra weight.
I mean, look at him huffing and puffing right there.
Yeah, he's struggling a little bit. And, he's been, it's been a tumultuous couple weeks for him. And, maybe his conditioning and his workouts and everything are not exactly where his focus is at this point. And I know that probably everything that's going on is taking a toll on him. One thing I do find interesting, though, he comes in at 9 pounds heavier than he was at the combine. Darnell Washington came in 8 pounds heavier than he was at the combine. He said he weighed 272 today. He weighed 264 at the combine. So, and Darnell had a pretty good workout. I thought he had a little bit of a limp, especially when he was walking around. But I don't know, maybe a little scale issue, maybe a little bit of last minute weight cutting for the combine that they didn't do for this. Not entirely sure. But he didn't look like he was in shape. I'll say that. Otherwise, the drills he did, he looked good in. Where it is, he cramped up. Jalen's it's just not helping himself a whole lot right now. And what's looking at Stetson Bennett there on the screen. Everybody was talking about what he did to his draft stock by getting a public intoxication thing. I mean, Jalen's heard his worse. With events before the combine and events since the combine at pro day. And I didn't think it was just this god awful, he struggled, he looked terrible type thing, but he didn't get through as much as you would want a potential 3-down defensive tackle to get through.
Yeah, it was a context thing. It was not he bombed, he tanked, he had a terrible workout. It was he already has all this stuff coming in. He needed to at least just hold the line and show up, work out solid, and be strong. And what I heard anyway from one of those workouts, I don't know who the coaches were, who the scouts were, or whoever that was the ringleader on some of those things. But I heard one of them kind of yelling at him or Nolan Smith. I don't think it was Nolan Smith, not to half-ass anything.
They were yelling at Jalen. Yeah, it was the.
That's not what you want when 32 NFL franchises are right there watching you, whether you're half-assing it or not. You don't want someone yelling that at you. So that kind of stuck out to me as like, ooh, probably not the best.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you guys. I didn't think it was noticeably like terrible, but it was probably not his best. And Jake, like you pointed out over on the board, he did so again tonight. He's got a lot of things going on other than football. He's dealing with that as best as he can. And maybe right now the football is secondary, and that's not what you want when you're going through this draft process. But he's already being handed a hand of cards that he probably didn't want right now. And that's his own doing. I'm not trying to say that the world is against Jalen Carter. That is his own doing. But I think that probably it's being blown a little bit out of proportion. What he did today. If he wasn't in the spotlight that he was, I don't know that people would have paid as much attention to his effort, his conditioning, whatever it may be today. If he hadn't put himself in the spotlight already, I don't know that he would be in it right now.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's a spotlight. I think it was a microscope. Everything he did, it was like a tennis match. You could watch all 32 heads turn if Jalen Carter walked by him, even when he wasn't working out, because they wanted to try and glean anything they could out of his workout today. He was being dissected every single move today. And that's that maybe that would have happened, if you're looking at a guy that is about to be the #1 overall draft pick in an alternate universe where he doesn't come in with all this off the field stuff. Maybe everyone is analyzing him that much because he didn't do anything physical at the combine, but it certainly doesn't help. And in the weight thing, when that hit this morning, I think it was Nagy that reported it first, that he came in 9 pounds heavier. I was like, oh boy, everything after that today is going to be about what Jalen Carter is not doing right. And it kind of turned into that at an otherwise pretty successful day for Georgia, from my vantage point, just watching on the TV.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you're above 300 pounds, that weight thing. But again, it didn't kind of hit me till later because we were interviewing Darnell, and he said, that he did come in when they measured Darnell, they got him at 6'7" today. And then he was, well, what did you weigh? And he said 272 pounds, and I was like, man, that's a Jake Rose style weight gain right there in 2 weeks. I putting on 8 pounds is a good deep breath for me. But yeah, I mean, and then, then they say the same thing about Jalen Carter, which I didn't hear until later. I don't know that the weight gain doesn't bother me as much as him just not being able to finish. And I wonder, and this is no excuse, and it's definitely not an excuse when you consider it's his own doing, right? It's his own doing. He got a warning for driving fast. He continued to do it. He was involved in what went on. Not necessarily, he didn't cause it, but he was involved. If maybe he didn't work out at the combine to give himself a little extra time to make up for some of the stuff he didn't do while he was dealing with all this stuff and mentally and emotionally, maybe he wasn't where he thought he was going to be. Ultimately, the way Kirby Smart spoke about him today was interesting to me because, he did talk about how, some of the stuff Jalen's had to go through. He did make the comment that, Jalen, he was glad Jalen was able to be back around the team yesterday for practice. Right. And I don't know, it sounded like he was describing a guy that's been going through it. And again, I'm not sitting here saying, hey, Jalen's justified in showing up and, looking out of shape at the NFL combine. But at the same time, we're looking for causes, not excuses, and I think that's ultimately having played a huge role in this thing. At what point, I don't know. Was it the legal issues that got him upset? Was it the incident itself? It's tough to say. But the fact that he's kind of trying to press through this and get through this, I'm not so sure we're not dealing with a dude that's dealing with in some ways, some survivor's guilt type stuff, and in some ways, a kind of a broken heart, because a lot of guys are. And, I don't know. I don't even really want to know. I would just like to see him get in shape and do well for himself going forward.
I'm totally with you, Jake. I think it's easy to empathize with what he's going through from that standpoint of, I mean, we're not charged with the same thing or the same crimes, but just thinking about where he is and the situation he's landed himself in right now, to see a guy that is potentially carrying a lot of that burden, it's easy to understand the human emotion of that and how it could set him back. Now, the question is, how many opportunities does he have? This was the last big scale opportunity in front of everybody. He could have had the combine. He chose not to. Would have made sense if he wasn't in trouble to, just say, okay, he doesn't need to do that. He proved it as a player. But now you're almost in the situation where, okay, buddy, you got to show me something, because now I'm finding more and more reasons to not pick you up. So didn't do the combine, he had the workouts today. Maybe there's some workouts in between now and the draft, but what can he do physically to show everyone like, hey, I actually can get in better shape?
Yeah, I mean, there are workouts in between. There's the individual workouts with the teams. I mean, hell, Jalen Carter, if he said he's going to hold a private workout on his own, all these teams would show up. To talk to him about his situation, and B, to see to give him another chance. These teams are looking for a reason to draft a player this good. They're not looking for reasons to, they are looking for reasons not to draft guys. But when you've got a guy that's this talented, that's proven it this much on the field, they would love a reason to be able to take him and justify their selection. That's 100%.
Yeah, there's a group of guys, and it's a much larger group than the other group. But there's a group of guys, like you said, Palmer, they're looking for reasons not to draft these guys. Then you got the Jalen Carters and of the world that kind of have some baggage, and you're trying to find everything. You're trying to find that modicum of hope, like, oh, you're talking to your D-line coach and you're saying, hey, do you think you can get through to him? Do you think you can do this? And I ultimately think when you look at Jalen Carter's situation, the racing thing is problematic because you don't know. I mean, listen, Henry Ruggs had what happened to him in Vegas, and you hear about these incidents. I mean, is the next time going to be the time that Jalen Carter gets seriously hurt or lose, or worse? I mean, is the next time he goes 85 and a 45? Is that what's going to happen? We don't know, and you hope that he's learned that lesson. So that's kind of a red flag. This is another red flag. But I tell you, I'm with you, Palmer, 100%. I really believe that there are NFL teams just kind of, all right, can you get him in? And I think, Wes, I'm not sure on NFL rules. You've covered more NFL ball than I have. Don't teams get a certain amount of private workouts that they can kind of bring
it's 30
and put them through?
It's been a while since I've been around that scene, but I mean, they do have their allotment of, contact time they can spend with them. Things they can do, workouts. I mean, hell, Bill Belichick shows up to Athens and told David Andrews to work out for him in the parking lot, basically. I mean, it's just you do what you can, and you get in touch with them and see what you can do and how much you can learn one-on-one. And yeah, I mean, with Carter, you got to think somebody is still seeing something in there. Maybe they're understanding, okay, we get one bad workout, and that's what we saw today. But I'm curious, I mean, how much do you think one pro day like this, with all the context around Jalen Carter right now, how much can it really hurt or help him? I just don't know that one day, even if it was bad, let's take the Twitter talk out of it. The actual reality of the situation, I don't know how much one day was going to impact him one way or another. And let's take a step back and think about the context there. For a talent of Jalen Carter's magnitude, I just don't know that it could.
No, I mean, Wes, you're right there, because when you're talking about players that are this talented, to guys that could go number 1 overall in the draft, there's not a huge difference in terms of what they can do to go from 1 to 5, 1 to 7, 5 to 10, whatever, that small range. We're talking about it's money. It's a lot of money that's being, that's a matter of, those draft positions, but it's a small range. Today, days like today, the NFL Combine too, it's more for guys that are able to move rounds, that are back end of the draft guys that are able to impress a team. And instead of being a 7th round pick or an undrafted guy, they get a 4th round, 5th round grade. To me, that's what these days are more about than, hey, is this team going to take you at 1 or are you going to fall to 8?
Yeah, it's not. I will
say this:
Jalen's falling out of the first.
If I'm an NFL scout, and I would be surprised if this doesn't come up in at least one meeting, right? If I'm an NFL scout and I'm thinking, or a GM, I'm asking myself, all right, life is hard, okay? Life is just hard, and bad stuff's going to happen, and tough stuff's going to happen. I mean, you may not lose a teammate, be right there, be a part of it, all that stuff. But is this how he's going to react when stuff gets hard? Is he going to kind of go in the tank for a few weeks or a couple months and kind of lose himself and lose his body and lose his conditioning? I think you got to ask yourself that question. I think you got to ask yourself the question of is he going to be the kind of guy that's going to battle his weight his whole career? And it didn't seem to hurt Jordan Davis too much. And Jordan Davis, I mean, I don't think folks really understand how much that was a yearly deal of, hey, Jordan, you're too heavy, you're 370, you got to get down to 330. And then finally, I don't know if you guys noticed this, that last year, his whole career, it was 320. That last year, Kirby and company are like, yeah, we just keep him 335, whatever. Jesus Christ. I mean, it was like, golly, let's just,
But Jake, if Jalen was battling weight his entire career, don't you think we would have heard about it the same way we heard about it with Jordan?
No, I agree with you there. But at this point, you've got that. We're talking about a seed of doubt here, and you got to gain some weight in a short period of time and gets out of shape. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things that as they scrutinize him. I think some teams are gonna. I don't know. I don't think this. I know this. Some teams are going to put a little bit more into it than others. I know that through the years of being in press boxes and hitting up the guy with the Arizona Cardinals pullover on and talking to the guy with the Indianapolis Colts hat on. I've made some contacts and some guys that I've that I can text with.
Okay, Adam Schefter.
I saw. Oh no, I can't break any NFL news, but I can text them about things like.
Did you just give up your sources? Did you just tell us?
No. I did not use the teams of the teams that I talked to. No.
Jim Irsay is Jake Rose.
Yeah, I get a lot of stuff from Jim. We got the same. Never mind. I was about to make it. We got the same guy.
Got the same pharmacist.
See, street pharmacist. Yeah, we got the same street pharmacist. But no, we definitely don't. What he had in his system that night put me on my ass for months. But no, so I hit some guys up after I saw them there. I didn't get a chance to talk to them. We get close enough. They're we're peons and they're serfs. But I texted a few guys and everybody kind of had some version of, yeah, we'll see how it goes. What do you think of Jalen Carter, all this stuff. But I will say the guy that I'm talking about, like the people are absolutely in love with, Nolan Smith. Everybody I talked to is like, man, that Nolan Smith kid is something else. I bet you loved covering that kid. And I was like, kind of. He started to sound like at some point he started to sound like a 59-year-old Baptist preacher. Very old soul that man is. But they love Nolan Smith and everybody's in wait and see mode on Jalen Carter. There's plenty of time between now and the NFL draft for those private workouts, for those interviews. And I tell you what, man, if I'm Jalen's agent, which I believe is Drew Rosenhaus, one of the best ones out there, also one of the most boisterous. If I'm his agent and his trainer, he's running at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he's running at 6 o'clock the next morning.
I'd almost ask Kirby Smart to get involved, and I don't even know if that's allowed, but I'd say, hey, coach, how'd you do it? What'd you do? And that's what is kind of speculated about right now is, these guys leave the meat grinder that is Georgia's program and just go crazy or not keep themselves as disciplined because Georgia's program is so stringent. And I say that tongue in cheek about getting Kirby Smart involved if you're Drew Rosenhaus, but I do wonder, I mean, the hardest thing to do a lot of times is to motivate yourself. And it might be hard when you're getting screamed at by Kirby Smart, but it's a lot harder a lot of times to motivate yourself to do anything.
Wes, you make a really good point, man. And I could not agree more with the idea that when you do run that meat grinder, a lot of guys are going to respond to it positively. They're going to just transition to the next level because they see the dollar signs and they see that earning potential. Alabama had their fair share. Eddie Lacy, body, just let it roll. I mean, Eddie Lacy looked more like Jake Rowe than he did college Eddie Lacy, a few years into the league. Rolando McClain was a stud at Alabama, maybe the best college linebacker from a size and speed and freak show standpoint I've ever seen. Flamed out in the NFL. Henry Ruggs went, bat feces crazy when he got to.
Well, let me tell you one. I mean, speaking of the NFL coverage in my distant rear view, I mean, this seems like a simple example that maybe turned into a bigger one, but Calvin Ridley shows up to rookie camp and it is hot as hell outside and he's wearing long sleeves and everyone's asking him. I think D-Lad was probably the first one to ask him, why are you wearing long sleeves? And Calvin goes, Coach Saban wouldn't let us do it. And that was like a little glimpse into that of like, I finally have a little freedom. So what am I going to do? I'm going to wear long sleeves. And that, I'm not saying that's why he got in trouble with sports gambling,
but responsible for that as a program. Like listen, one of the things that killed Georgia fans under Mark Richt, that just drove them crazy were, and I don't count Geno Atkins in this because Geno Atkins was a stud in college and he was just a better pro because I think better pro relative to his draft position because there was no Aaron Donald yet and nobody wanted to draft 6'1.5" defensive tackles at the time. But you saw so many guys, Rashad Jones is an example. Several others who played for Rick, had good, decent Georgia careers, but man, the NFL got the best of them. It got the best version of those players. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen at Alabama. That doesn't happen. That's not going to happen at Georgia. That they're going to squeeze every ounce of potential that kid has at the age of 18, 19, 20, 22, 23 out of that kid. And, you can't be responsible for them not being able to take it. Like I said, most of those guys are going to go into the pro level and they're going to be, hey, listen, I practiced harder than this in college. And now I'm getting paid for it. So I'm good to go. But some of those guys are going to get a little bit of freedom. Maybe they had more structure at the college level because of the fact that they were a little bit more apt to step out. But you can't be responsible for it. You got to run your program the right way, the way that wins championships and the way that produces 5 first-round draft picks and 15 overall draft picks. And it sucks for Georgia fans. I hate it for all of you. Every single one of you that this offseason has been what it was. But I also wish you wouldn't have wasted last offseason bitching and moaning about Stetson Bennett. That I've said my piece.
Some people enjoyed it for what it was. Something that we always enjoy around here is Breaking Tea and the Georgia shop specifically over at Breaking Tea. Palmer, no offense to your hoop dogs. Everyone's hoop dogs. But this cracked me up. The big
Does it say anything about the ladies is blocking?
Oh, it does.
Okay. Thank goodness.
I thought it was just like it's March. Okay, it does.
Okay.
So get this women's basketball big dance t-shirt.
There we go.
Good catch, Jake Rose.
Go support the ladies, man. Go support them. They work real hard.
Yeah, they do. And thankfully they have escaped their basketball coliseum that's falling apart. Hopefully it will be ready to host some basketball games by next season.
They better be writing down that mesothelioma ad on daytime TV. I hear there's.
I don't know if there's any asbestos falling around in there, but
mesothelioma, baby.
No asbestos in the Breaking Tea apparel that we just really, really enjoy.
Less than 1% asbestos.
Less than 0%. Check out the link in the show description for all of your championship gear and a lot of your Stetson Bennett gear as well. And we'll be talking a lot about Brock Bowers, I reckon, this time next season, unless he just really shocks the world and is the best Bulldog ever. So let's talk about
Wes. Yeah. Since people loved your D-Led impression in the comments, I want you to pull this up. We can show the people the hat that he was wearing today.
We're not okay. I'm not coming on here to bash.
I love D-Led. I love D-Led. He was my professor in the sports media program. He was wearing go look.
He was probably wearing his fraternity hat, right?
Man, I got to tell you guys from today. So there was one chair
in the Kenny McIntosh photos from today.
There was one chair to sit in on that sideline today in that indoor practice facility. And I posted up in it a couple times. And after the Kirby Smart interview, I made a beeline. I grabbed my computer and I went straight to that chair and I sat in it. And as soon as I sat in it and looked, my man D-Led, as soon as I sat in it, I looked left. I saw D-Led right behind me. And he goes, I was coming for that chair. And and I said, "You can have it, dude. I'll sit on the ground." And so I sat on the ground, let D-Led have the chair. He sat in it for like 5 minutes, like he was like on a battery charger, and then got up and walked away.
Just like eyes glazed over, just
Yeah, it was
totally
like, hey,
unplugged.
listen, just had to get off the feet for a minute.
Replicant from
D-Led for
Runner.
Bark After Dark.
One day, maybe.
I mean, don't
if he
don't
can hang
rule
out with us, if he can hang out with us peasants who cover the college game.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see D-Led come up there for Georgia stuff because he doesn't get that ceremonial first question that he gets on the Falcons beat. It's like he respects it, but I think on some level he doesn't really know what to do with his hands. Let's talk about everybody that wasn't Jalen Carter today. And I don't want to stay just on Jalen and Stetson Bennett. That's y'all hear us talk about those two guys all the time. But we got to start with Stetson. From my take, my read on it, I don't think he really did anything one way or another. I don't think he crushed himself. I don't think he did anything to wow anybody either.
No, he let a few deep balls kind of hang up on him a little bit. A couple of them that guys had to wait on. Chip Towers made a pretty good assessment. Now, God, persona non grata. I get it. You guys don't like him. I do.
Chip
whatever.
with the stash today.
Yeah, I'm not a big. I told him I called it. I had a name for it when I saw it. I can't say it because it's inappropriate. Chip made a good point. He's like, he's throwing the ball so much better to his left than he threw to his right. And he was right. He was kind of driving the ball to his left and throwing to his right, a little bit kind of wild and out of sorts. I thought it was up and down on the full field stuff, but when he got to the red zone, I thought he was really good. They had deep outs to the back pylon. They had comebacks to the front pylons. The old stick and nod from NCAA. To Darnell Washington, the favorite play of Connor Riley of Dog Nation. Stetson was on time and on target in the red zone stuff and looked really good. And I thought he moved really well too. That you don't get to see him as close as we got to see him today very often. And he is so cat quick with some of those late rush things they were simulating for him. But I thought he did. But I'll say this: I thought one of his receivers, none of whom are Georgia players eligible for the NFL draft. One of his receivers,
Darnell and Kenny, right?
Yeah. I'm just talking about his wide receivers.
Okay, gotcha.
But you're right. Yeah. One of his wide receivers who is at Georgia this year did the best thing I saw all day, and that was Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint. Kind of ran a square in, and Stetson had like a late rush simulation come right at him, right as he was throwing, and he kind of let it sail on him and get behind him. And Rosemy left his feet, got at least 3 feet of air and reached back with his right hand and palmed it, brought it in, and just kind of hit the ground running upfield. It was a really impressive catch, and that was probably the best thing I saw from anybody all day long.
Yeah, the flip side last year, Carson Beck throws because what was the word, Palmer? Pickens requested that Carson Beck be his quarterback. Is that true?
That's what we were told. That the Pickens liked how hard Carson threw it and how much he could air it out. So that was the case last year.
Yeah, well, this year you get the flip side, and Rosemy-Jack Saint does get to show up a year early and maybe gets himself on the radar ever so slightly, and he's getting every extra rep he can. Him,
Arian Smith, and Dylan Bell. Plus, don't forget Luke Bennett, Georgia walk-on and younger brother of Stetson. I know those two enjoyed that. That was special for them. With Stetson, it was some up, some down.
Let me pause you right there, Palmer. Mike Tomlin right here talking to Kieris Jackson, and Mike Tomlin was like glue to George Pickens at Pro Day last year.
Yes, he was.
We saw how that turned out. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering. I saw that, and I was wondering whether they were talking about Kieris or whether they were talking about Georgia receivers in Pittsburgh, man. No, I mean, and there's a great photo too from Tony today, Tony Walsh of UGA Sports.com, who has Jarvis Jones talking with his former coach in Mike Tomlin. So With Stetson, I thought it was a little bit of up, a little bit of down. I thought the way that he handled himself with the media afterwards and how, it was very Stetson-esque. His understanding of, hey, this is something that I have to do. This is for the scouts. He wasn't completely satisfied. He was, I think he used the word pretty good a couple of times and said, that he missed on some balls and would have liked to have him back. I think he threw it 50 or so times. And let's be honest, how often are you throwing the ball 50 times in that short of a window? I mean,
that's true.
Never.
Yeah, that short window is the kicker. He probably throws it more than that in game day, but it's spread out over the course of about 6 hours.
Right.
Not 6 hours. That's a lot. Maybe like 4.5, 5 hours.
Well, if it's on CBS, it's probably closer to accurate.
through that many times over the course of the weekend.
Well, yeah, people bring that up. How much do scouts really get out of this? He's throwing on air. There's no real defenders. But yeah, I mean, you're that rapid fire back to back to back to back. That is mentally and physically grueling.
Every quarterback pro day is different. I mean, he was saying part of what he's done with quarterback country out in Dallas is they helped script the routes that these guys were going to run. And they NFL had a script NFL script. They had a script of what he was going to do, what these receivers were going to run, just essentially laying out, hey, we're going to showcase this about Stetson's game. And I would like to go back and watch it again and, see, hey, what did he throw more than he did others? I noticed he had the Zach Wilson rollout throw across his body, deep ball in there that wowed everyone on social media when Zach did it. Stetson did it. And I believe it was dropped by Matt Landers.
Well,
he had a couple of those. Listen, Matt, you say what you want about Matt Landers. In the House of Pain indoor facility in the Woodruff practice fields, that son of a gun caught a lot of stuff. It was just between the hedges that he had some issues.
Chris Smith said he got a welcome to college from Matt Landers.
Man, I'll tell y'all right now, I really hope Matt Landers becomes a good player, but I'm going to have a burr in my saddle for Matt Landers for a long time because 2 preseasons in a row, I had dads of player parents, of players calling me. I had sources who saw practice, other people that will remain nameless. I'm talking about like in unison. Man, Matt Landers is the truth. Matt Landers is dominating the scrimmage. Matt Landers just torched not Darian Kendrick, just torched Eric Stokes. Who
was there today?
Just lighting people up. And then the season rolls around, and Matt Landers is AWOL.
Stokes and Nakobe Dean showing up today. And how about Nakobe Dean showing up in the Georgia Pro Day attire? That threw me for a loop. I was like, is he out there to –
I believe Nakobe is taking classes this semester. Because I've heard from some folks around campus that he's been on the buses over by Driftmeyer.
The ghost of Nakobe Dean is still remaining
good
on
for
the
you,
Georgia
Nakobe
campus.
Dean. Good for you, Nakobe Dean. I know we're not chopping wood yet, but that's something we could chop wood about. Tomahawk, since you can hear me but not see me, that's probably a good thing. Did anyone run a 40 today? Kenny McIntosh ran it twice. We were very much so blocked out. Jake had a stopwatch, but did not get the time.
It took me a while to get over to a place where I could actually time it because they were running straight at us for a bit.
Yeah.
I did get a mere speed. Myself, Mark Weiser, and Jed May over at UGA Sports, we all got a mere speed
raced?
of 4.31, 4.31, and 4.32. No, we did not race. We did not race. Jed could probably outrun both me and Weiser on his hands. I need not say that about Weiser. Weiser's more athletic than you may think.
Who do you think the fastest reporter is on the Georgia beat?
I mean, are we counting like former players? Because
no, it's probably Connor.
No, like the
I don't know. Jordan's kind of wiry.
Connor's in good shape though. Connor actually runs a lot.
Oh yeah, Connor is. Yeah, he runs like marathons and stuff.
Yeah.
Connor's.
Well,
He's got to
not a
put
sprint.
Band-Aids on his nipples.
He's got to put that lanolin on there. Any other?
This is dropping
standout-
the breastfeeding tips over
Yeah,
here.
well, this is in my
This is
near
turned into
future.
Bark After Dark.
Any other standouts from Pro Day today? Kenny McIntosh, Keely Ringo, Robert Beal. I mean, Beal coming off of that good NFL combine looked like he was still out there getting some work done. I was not glued to the TV screen, and really the coverage was centered on Stetson and Jalen. So I didn't really see much of those dudes.
So yes, Sean, William Poole was working out. The former players that were there, I've got the list. William Poole was there. Obviously, he didn't finish the season with the team. Jaden Hunter from Western Kentucky, Hugh Nelson from Hawaii, Amir Speed from Michigan State, Colby Wyatt from Hawaii, and Matt Landers from Arkansas. Jake, you mentioned Darnell putting on weight, and I will say he looked skinny from what I saw.
Compared to what he looks like with pads on, he does look skinny.
Yeah, he does look skinny, and so maybe he put on weight, maybe he didn't. I'm not so sure that his
comeback a liar.
He
maybe
Somebody get the word out to that man right there.
But
Palmer
I thought I'm not so sure his combine measurements weren't off entirely.
Could be. You could be right about that. Okay. All right.
But
you're not calling him a liar. Your ass gets to live another day.
but 270 is still less than he played at. And
Darnell Washington busted in through the wall like the Kool-Aid man.
Yeah. Kirby said something today about sometimes Darnell playing at over 280.
Well,
That's just insane, man.
Darnell told us he was at 280 last season. So I mean, he's already lower than what he was with the hope of becoming a better pass catcher because of it, but still maintaining that run blocking ability.
Man, I'll tell you right now, if you tell me I got to tackle Darnell Washington at 280 pounds in the open field, I'm going to ask you for a pistol or a cyanide tablet.
No question.
Give me.
And I might use both on myself.
Yeah, just to be sure. Jake Roos, welcome to the show.
No.
Let's pivot from Pro Day. We have everything you could want on Pro Day over at DawgsHQ.com. $10 for 4 months right now. Is that correct?
That is. And everything on Pro Day, including some intel. And I'm not talking about like, hey, this is what we saw. Even though, listen, we got experts over there and we know what we're looking at. But I share some of the thoughts that I was able to reach out and get some guys to text me back on what they thought about Georgia players at the combine. Come check it out. I think it's pretty informative, pretty unique. It's the first time, honestly, that I've ever covered a combine, and I've kind of tapped into those things and kind of been able to say, here's what people are saying that I know and trust about, the way these Georgia players worked out. So come check us out. I mean, it's less than a penny a day. It really is. It's less than a penny a day to come spend 4 months with us and get to know us over at DawgsHQ.
Love it. Appreciate that, Jake. Jake Roos, you had a story today that caught my eye, or at least a snippet from your story, that Georgia is courting, in your words, or I guess Glenn Schumann's words, the next Nakobe Dean.
His words, not mine. Yeah. And listen, I mean, that's an effective pitch, right? Tristan Jernigan was the young man I wrote about, a linebacker out of Mississippi, Tupelo based, in fact. Definitely a kid that SEC fans are going to be familiar with over the next couple of years because he's got offers stacking up left and right. Ole Miss, a heavy favorite for him right now. But definitely an interesting guy. Saw him. He was down at the Under Armour camp in Atlanta and, really kind of boosted his stock there. I think that was soon after. That's when Georgia offered, if not that same day, if I remember correctly. So, look, I mean, that's a compelling sell, right? If you're going to compare somebody to anybody, Nakobe Dean's about as good of a comparison as you can get, especially if you're a kid from Mississippi playing linebacker. I mean, that's the goal, right? That's who Nakobe Dean was. So really interesting to hear that. a great sales pitch. And, if they see that in your game, like I said in my tweet, they obviously think a lot about what you can do. So intrigued to see this young man. I was kind of curious, like if there were a Nakobe Dean on the team this year, I was curious who you guys thought it might be.
In what regard? Like at the linebacker position?
Yeah. Right. Yes. At linebacker. Yeah.
I mean,
like in terms of
who plays like Nakobe, I guess. Who's the guy that you've envisioned playing like Nakobe this
Jamon
season?
Dumas Johnson.
well, is it going to be?
I don't know. I don't know. He has that motor. I don't know if he quite has Nakobe's motor.
I was thinking.
What about Jalen Walker?
Jalen's a good pick, but if you're
Jalen's
talking
bigger,
if we're talking inside guys, who was that, Palmer?
Jalen is bigger than.
Yeah, I was thinking C.J. Allen is the guy that kind of jumped off the page to me when I'm thinking of Nakobe. I compared him to Roquan, but I don't know that those guys are vastly different animals in terms of their style. So C.J. Allen to me is the guy who can be that kind of player for Georgia.
Nakobe, I think Nakobe was such a special linebacker at Georgia because like he kind of just had very rare instincts. That play against Michigan where the guy just takes one step in flat motion and Nakobe's over there just pointing like, hey, I'm going to meet him right there and tackle him. And he does. I mean, Nakobe did that kind of stuff a lot. I will say this, though, man. Nakobe Dean is the best linebacker I have ever seen, period, at the college level. Of when he blitzed, an offensive lineman could slip off and try to pick him up, and God, he was unblockable. He was absolutely unblockable. He'd give him a soft shoulder, and they were done. So, I mean, Nakobe's a special player and kind of a generational player in his own way.
Mm-hmm.
And Kirby talked about those instincts when he was first there. I mean, this is a guy, listen, he hid from his speed. He hid from having to showcase what he could actually run. And that may have ended up hurting him. It may have been medicals that ended up hurting him or whatever. But I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, that's one of the finest college football players I've ever watched, and a lot of it had to do with what was between his ears.
Yeah, I mean, he's and I guess still is a genius. Like maybe that's
we coming out of high school.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the catfish he ate on his pasta.
What's the story there?
So I mean, they said it. So they were doing the game day came for the Arkansas game, I think it was, or something like that. And they had Channing Tindall and Quay Walker and Nakobe and Nolan Smith. They had the kind of the linebackers, the second level of that defense. They were talking about trust and their difference between each other and what they knew about each other. And they were like, yeah, Nakobe's weird. He eats catfish on his pasta. And I think it's just like a Mississippi thing. I think it's like,
sounds really good.
Yeah, it was like a spaghetti almost or something, wasn't it? I don't even know.
It wasn't like a
burrito.
I'm kind of hungry.
Like a boat. I think like
what
a
you gonna
bow
do to some
tie.
Shoney's, Palmer?
Ooh. I could probably do to catfish pasta what I did to Shoney's, and that is mess it up.
Oh man! All right,
Another four-letter
we can
word.
get a Shoney's live show.
Yeah,
the
live from
Shoney's of
Shoney's.
Athens is right up the road.
What we're doing for the Shoney's brand is unmatched.
Is that one?
Nobody's done this much for Shoney's.
Are the Steiner brothers? Do they still have theirs? We should go do it at that one.
The Steiner brothers?
Yeah, Scott Steiner and Rick Steiner owned a
That was
show.
made up.
Are both of them still alive?
Yes, actually, surprisingly.
Let's hit them up. Glad you're still alive.
Baby. The genetic break.
All right. Before Palmer leaves the show to go to Shoney's, let's chop some wood. Palmer, you lead us off, man.
Good. I will chop wood about Nolan Smith and his future in football. Yes, he has got a great future, as probably has a great future as a player, but I think he definitely has a great future as a coach. Talked about it at the Combine. I may have mentioned it on that show, how much he wants to get into coaching. He said he wanted to start at the high school level because he could have a major impact on guys. Today, he revealed some bigger plans. Over the last couple of weeks, I guess he's developed these bigger plans, and he wants to be the Kirby Smart's successor. Big shoes to fill.
Wow.
I mean, Kirby's won 2
Throwing
national
his
championships
hat in the
already.
ring, huh?
Yeah. I mean, But Nolan says 4 Petes, 5 Petes. Those are his goals, not repeats. He wants to win. He wants to win them all. Obviously, I think that's a little bit tongue in cheek there, but I do think Nolan Smith would be one hell of a coach. Talked about, the kind of impact that he could have. I think he would be a great recruiter. Just go look at the recruiting pitch that he gave on NFL Network. He talked about that some today, talked about how important it was for him to have that moment to share about Georgia. You can tell UGA means a lot to him. And, I think Nolan Smith, maybe it's a joke, but I do think Nolan Smith would be a great coach one day.
Yeah, I mean, that's I don't want to say you're stealing Jake Rowe's thunder there, but that's something we've talked about.
It'd be really fun to see Nolan Smith come back as the head coach.
Oh man, absolutely. Listen, I'll tell you this: I don't think he would have any problem getting a graduate assistant job like that tomorrow.
No,
they'd welcome him with open arms. And talk about a recruiter.
Now what's funny about this is he could make a lot of money as a player, and he's going to make a lot of money as a player, but it's not often that you've got a guy who you're like, hey man, this guy's got several different ways he can become a millionaire pretty quick. And he could within 5-6 years be making probably close to $1 million, or at least have stockpiled $1 million as a coach. I mean, like you said, graduate assistant, gets his master's degree. I think he gets snatched up real quickly, especially because he's going to do that guy on the left is going to do exactly what that guy on the right tells him to do. And because he's one of the most coachable players I think that's ever come through that program. And if he does that guy on the right made a lot of money in a short period of time because he figured out, how to climb the ranks and what it took. And he said it before, if you want to be an assistant coach one day, then you recruit like one and you dress like one. And, I think Nolan Smith would take a similar path and be there really quick.
Now, I think he's going to have a better playing career than Kirby did, though.
Oh, no doubt. 100% already have.
Yeah.
Hot
Not
take
Kirby
alert.
was a bad player. He was good, but Nolan's going to play in the end.
We've mentioned Connor on the show already, so I'll bring up a debate that Connor and I were having today and bring it on here. Is who had a better Georgia career? Because Kirby was once an all-SEC player. Nolan never was.
I
mean, Kirby doesn't have the hardware. I mean, Kirby didn't.
As a player, though, I mean, as an individual, not a part of a team. Yeah, Kirby was not part of national championship teams as a player, but I mean, as an individual, was as an individual player, was he better?
I'll tell you. Yeah, here's.
You think Kirby was better than Nolan?
No, Nolan was.
If we're judging it on complete totality, like Kirby may have stacked somewhat better stats, right? Or like you said, all SEC,
right?
whatever.
Those accolades, all SEC.
Kirby Smart would have been pushed into the fire if somebody could have had Nolan Smith over Kirby Smart. They would have thrown him in front of a train, man.
Off the 40th story balcony of a hotel.
Kirby himself has said he would not have recruited himself, which I think is all you need to know.
Matthew C. No, Kirby does not share the team INT record. Dominic Sanders has more. Bakari Rambo has more for sure.
Fudge.
Yeah, Jamon Fudge. I saw Jamon out downtown the night that we both graduated at the same time. I think he came back to school because he was a little bit older than me. And I asked him what his plans were after college. And I'd had a few. I thought I was putting a pretty good joke on him. And Jamon Fudge did not like that joke. Anywho, I'll chop wood about Kirby Smart and Mike Bobo. This episode's been all about Pro Day, obviously, but we did get to hear from Kirby yesterday as spring practice begins. And as soon as this video is over, I want y'all to check out a couple things. I want you to go check out those press conferences. You get to hear from Kendall Milton. You get to hear from Kirby Smart. You get to hear from Ladd McConkey, Rad Ladd, and the Dogs are turning the page, turning a new leaf. But specifically, it's the first time we've gotten to hear Kirby really talk about Mike Bobo and the ways that he kind of confounded and confused him. when they played each other in that Auburn game. I guess it would have been in 2021. Is that right?
Yeah.
So go check that out.
He was the interim at South Carolina in 2020 when they
That's
played.
right.
That was Bubba's first game as interim.
And then the On3 national interview with J.D. Piquel and David Pollock. Pollock has not really a hot take. It's a lukewarm take that Carson Beck will be Georgia's starting quarterback. You may or may not find that interesting, but a little tease. He's got a little bit of wisdom. He's got a little bit of knowledge on how things will shake out between Georgia and Tennessee and Alabama moving forward in the SEC. So y'all go check that out and hear what 47 has to say about the Volunteers. Tennessee man isn't in here, so somebody let him know about that.
All right. If I'm chopping wood, it can only be really about one thing, and that's that Dylan Raiola is expected to be on campus this weekend. That's been the talk for some time. I'm in a real believe it when you see it kind of mode with Dylan Raiola and his visit stuff. Not to say that he's dishonest, but just sometimes stuff doesn't come to fruition in the way that you hope it does. There's quick changes, that kind of thing. So Dylan Raiola, big, huge visit for Georgia. Look, USC, that team that's really surged ahead, it feels like, and that felt like it came off the back of a visit that he spent there. Nebraska is certainly a team to watch out for. We've talked about all the reasons for that. Family connections. To me, there's no program that needs Dylan Raiola more than Nebraska in terms of long-term trajectory and what he means in the immediate. And then you've got Georgia lurking back there right now in third place on the On3 RPM. The Dogs are still in this thing, man. And I continue to hear that, and I continue to know people that feel good about it. So we'll see how this one goes. I think that this is a very, very big visit for Georgia. I think that these spring visits are especially crucial for Dylan Raiola. I haven't gotten the sense that he's ready to commit or pull any triggers anytime soon, but I do think that it's a crucial stretch moving into the summer. So if he makes this visit and it goes the way that Kirby Smart and company will be hoping, can really reposition Georgia in a big way. He's not the only one either. There's a lot of guys coming in this weekend, so be looking for a big visit.
Bruce, tell me.
I know what you're laughing at. I can see it too.
Bruce's fridge looks about the size of an RV.
Dog has the sticks out. He's got marshmallows on him. He is roasting.
It's a depth perception thing, man. We're playing angles here, okay? It's a full size refrigerator.
It's actually a very large kitchen.
Put his arm up and put his fridge on it.
Meanwhile, Tomahawk Dog has me over here researching better internet connection.
Yeah, Tomahawk Dog just signs on and roasts us.
One beer at a time for Roos in that fridge, baby.
Man, listen, we get them cold, we sit the next one in there. Matthew C. says, I think Raiola has gone to the Heisman factory, aka whatever team Lincoln Riley coaches. I'm not disagreeing with that, honestly. I think that makes a lot of sense, personally. If you're a top-tier quarterback, if you want accolades, you want stats, that makes a lot of sense, man. I mean, it is what it is. Now, what can Mike Bobo do with a guy like that? What could Todd Monken have done with a guy like that? We don't really have those answers. We don't know. But what we do, we do know what Lincoln Riley can do with guys like that, and that's compelling, man. It really is. At the end of the day, also, Georgia's got a quarterback commit. They got a really solid one, and Chad Simmons did a great story with him the other day. Ryan Puglisi said other teams are pressing. I'm locked in with Georgia. I had mentioned him a couple weeks ago, I think, on Chopping Wood. Mm-hmm. He's very solidly committed to the Dogs, and they need to feel good about that.
He is not backing down. Ro, before we get to you, Bruce, what's like a visit during spring practice compared to a visit during like the dead of winter? I almost imagine that when things are a little bit more lively, guys are hopping around, there's energy because of spring practice. I almost have to imagine that those visits, not that Georgia just sucks and mails it in on the other ones, but I have to imagine that those visits have a little bit more pep in the step for Kirby's coaching staff.
No, they're cool. I mean, it's the January visits, in my opinion, are a little bit better because there's really just no football happening. So you're able to devote a little bit more time face to face. Whereas in this instance, you got spring practice rolling. You're obviously focused on that to some degree, but it's a good window for Georgia to recruit in at this time. It's much better, in my opinion, than a game day, which is a total you've got a few windows of time that you can pack things in, and that's about it. The rest of it's devoted, obviously, to what's going on between the hedges. So these are big visits, man. These are important visits and very compelling visits. I think especially, we've already got a couple of names on that OV tracker over at DawgsHQ circled for that G-Day game. I think that's going to be a really impressive one when all's said and done. A couple of OVs already lined up there, and I think that's a great time to take them for sure, because look, the game is what it is. It's an inter-squad scrimmage, so spring visits, don't underrate them. They set a big tone for how things play out, I think, going into the summer.
Cool, good stuff. All right, Ro, take us home.
All right, I'm going to chop wood on. Listen, I was watching the NFL Combine, and I was looking at the NFL Combine gear. It says no bull on it. I'm like, what the heck is this? So I start looking around and find out today.
No, it says no Bulldogs, and it was a Falcon shirt.
Found out today, Brock Bowers has signed an NIL deal. The greatest player in Georgia history has signed an NIL deal with no bull. I have joke about that. I don't have my tongue completely in my cheek, but a little bit. Listen, you guys all know what I think of Brock Bowers. And it's I listen. My dad's one of them. Okay, my dad is one of these traditionalist college football fans. NIL is going to ruin the sport. Oh no, you hear it all the time. Man, I love it. I do, because I remember when Todd Gurley couldn't do what Todd Gurley should have been able to do, and AJ Green couldn't do what AJ Green was supposed to be able to do. And listen, just because you're going to college doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to do the most capitalistic thing ever, and that's capitalize on who you are, and that's your name, image, and likeness. And Brock Bowers has got a good deal with no bull. Great NIL deal, I'm sure. It's going to be tremendous. He's been with them. He's going to continue to be with them. He's going to go make just an absolute, bushel of cash in the NFL, several bushels of cash, and it's going to be wonderful. But good on that guy. Gave all the collective money back. We've already covered that part of it. Another NIL deal for him. That valuation keeps rising and rising. And again, he's worth every penny, and especially when you think about what he means to Georgia.
Am I the only person that no bull came out of nowhere at the NFL draft? Like all of a sudden I saw that and I was like, what does this even mean? Like
strategic launch.
Because last year I'm pretty sure it was sponsored by New Era.
Those guys came out the gate swinging, man, with their marketing strategy. Kudos to their seed funding, man.
No bull, baby. No bull here on the DawgsHQ YouTube channel on the Georgia Show. We're live every Wednesday and Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and also live every Monday at 9 p.m. on Bark After Dark. So y'all hit like, hit subscribe, lock us in. We love having you in the comments section. If you're new tonight, we appreciate your kind words, and let us know how we could be doing things better as Georgia heats up in spring practice. Next time we talk, and the next several times we talk, will be all about that. So log us in, don't miss out. And if you do happen to miss a live show, we have the replay repeat on YouTube and on Apple and Spotify as well for the audio only listeners. Jakes, Palmer, appreciate y'all joining after a long day at the coal mines, at the House of Pain. And Jake Roos, always a pleasure to have your recruiting insight as well. Y'all lay off Palmer with his internet issues, all right? He's making the transition from college to the real world. He's figuring out his modem.
Let the boy walk.
He's just a boy.
He's figuring things out, all right? So lay off him. He'll get it figured out. It's always fun, internet perfection or not, right here on the Georgia Show. We'll catch y'all next time. Thank you.